in the gay world, drugs are prevalent. I mean, it's part of the culture, but I can tell you it wasn't the culture. I was far beyond influence by that point because I was already doing so many drugs, you know.
Mike, when did you know that you had a problem? Like, when did you get to the point where you said, this is not fun anymore, this is a problem?
I think when I was like 20 or 21, when I started doing crystal meth, and I would throw it away and I'd flush it down the toilet because I didn't like the person it had me become. And then I would go buy more the next day. So like, that's when I was like, something's off because I'm literally trying to stop and I can't stop. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like everyone just goes, just stop. And I remember there were moments where I would buy meth for $240. That was like, would last, you know, I mean, that was a lot of money that I could live off that for a week. And I didn't really have any other money saved up. I didn't have much of a job. And I would spend that money. And then the next day I'd flush down probably $180 worth. And it's a weird feeling when you can't stop doing something that you know is destroying your life.
That's interesting you say that too, because when I talked to your parents, both of them mentioned like sending you money, lots of money, and not really, you know, and they talked, both of them, about this idea of how manipulative you could be and how, right, Ron? We talked a little bit about that yesterday.
You know, Mike was a great manipulator, and I'm speaking for myself. I know I was a great enabler. Mike's first week at college, he'd been there 1 week, and he called me up, and it was cold out, and he said, Dad, I need a new jacket. And I said, well, we just bought you a jacket for $300-400, Mike. He said, well, I left it in a restaurant and I came back and it was gone. Now, to this day, I believed it at the time, but I gave him more money. He had an allowance of $1,000 a month, and 10 days into the month, that money would be gone. And I'd ask him, what are you doing? And I never thought he was spending that much on drugs. And then we got to a point where I'd give him $500 twice a month and $250 a week, and then like $100 every couple of days. And, you know, but I was still enabling him because, you know, I didn't really, I probably knew there was more going to drugs than I'd like, but I didn't want him starving. I didn't want him taking greater risks because he didn't have the money. And I don't know what he would do, how desperate he would do. And I was feeling desperate at the same time, trying to figure out how do I get him help? And that's another story. But, you know, obviously I wasn't very successful at doing that. I talked to a lot of people, but I felt like I had to keep feeding him a little bit because I didn't know how desperate he would be or what he would do. With hindsight, you know, that wasn't the way to do it, but that's all I knew.
Mike, did you have a bottom?
No, I mean, I think there's always, since getting in recovery, you realize like a bottom is just a moment of desperation. And in those moments of desperation, you ask for help, right? So like, but I had a lot of those, like those moments of like, I can't do this. Why am I doing this? I think when I started like carrying a lot of meth through the airport, and enough meth that would have me in prison for many years. And then kind of like, my mom's smiling as I say this.
Well, because I remember how insane that was, that you took it on an airplane. That made me realize how crazy addicts are.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot cheap. So in California, it would cost $60, but in New York, it would cost $240. And I couldn't manipulate Dad anymore. So I thought, hey, why don't I just, you know, make a little money? And I had someone in LA who actually advanced it to me. I never paid them back because I ended up in treatment shortly after. Sorry, drug dealer, whoever you are in the world. But Yeah, I think like when I realized that I would stay up for like 5 days, 6 days, a week at a time with no sleep. And when you crash on that, it's a really terrible crash. And the last few times I crashed, I realized, and the paranoia was so bad. I spray painted my place red. I don't know if you remember that, Dad.
I remember it because we had to repaint it before we could rent it out again.
Yeah, so I thought I was possessed, and I thought there was a camera in the peephole to my door, and it was pretty dark and crazy. And so like I had like kind of like God moments, like where I felt like there was like some moments of clarity that came to be. And then in those moments, I realized that I need to do something. I gotta get some help. And so I called my dad and said, I know someone who's stayed sober. Here's a program he went to. I need help. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a share, put in the comments what you thought. Until next time, keep it magical.